Oh,
I'm going to turn this off.
okay.
Good morning, everyone. Today is September 26th, the year 2003. I'm Harry Ziegler, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in California. Part of our mission is to record and preserve the history of World War II. In conjunction with the Veterans Oral History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participate in our country's military conflicts. Today I'm here along with fellow volunteer Mary and Bob Andrade and Dave Thompson. Today we have the honor and the privilege of interviewing Ronald Aubrey. Ronald was in the Navy in World War II and a battleship man. So nice to have you here, Ron.
Thank you.
If you would spell your full name and tell us when and where born, we can start.
It's Ronald, R-O-N-A-L-D, Aubrey, A-U-B-R-Y, born in Chicago, Illinois, 9/13/1926.
And if would, could we get into a little bit of the history of your family, where your
Sure.
mother and dad, grandparents might have come from?
Okay. Primarily the mother's side came from Ireland, and on my father's side mostly German and Irish.
And can you go into your grandparents? Do you know much about them?
Not much about them. When they first came here, they came to Canada, and from Canada they moved down into Chicago.
And can you got any reason why they left Canada to come to America instead of staying?
No, probably just for the opportunity. I can't recall anything else.
And what kind of business were your grandparents into?
My grandfather on my mother's side was a contractor, and on my father's side he was an engineer.
And did they then do contracting in Chicago?
Yes, my grandfather, with the contractor, built some houses in Chicago, houses and mostly private residences, yes.
Did he do any apartments or anything like that?
Yes, he built 2 apartments, I recall, yeah.
And did you ever live in one of the houses that he built?
Yes, we did. When I was born at the American Hospital in Rogers Park, and after I was born, we moved down to the near west side where my grandfather built a house.
And then your dad, what did he?
Well, my father was in the First World War in the Army Air Corps, and he was a mechanic. And before he went in the service, he was a mechanic. When he came out of the service, he went into the grain business, stocks.
So he was making
Futures,
money, futures and
yes.
things like that. Now, when he was in the Army Air Corps, he was in France?
Yes, he was in France.
And did he fly while he was there?
Well, one of the planes that he fixed, I think it was a Jenny with 2-seater, he went up with the pilot, and as they took off, they hit a tree, and that was the end of his flying.
So
he was transferred, actually he was discharged right after that.
I see. And what, then going back to your father, he came home from Europe and the war and then became into the grain business, is that it?
No, I'm not sure exactly if it was then, but he did get married then.
So how big was the house that you
It was a 5-bedroom with a basement.
and how many were in your family?
About 7.
So who all did that include?
Well, that was my mother and my father, my grandfather on my mother's side, my grandmother, and then my grandfather passed away, and then a few years later my brother was born.
It was pretty common, though, to have grandmothers and grandfathers
Yes.
living in the house
Right.
until they died.
There's quite a few of families on the block did that, yes.
Was your neighborhood pretty much Irish Catholic, or was it a big mix?
Well, it was Irish and Italian and German and Polish, predominantly Italian.
Was there a lot of Italian spoken in the neighborhood?
Yes, there was, quite a bit.
Could you understand any of it?
Oh yeah, I got to learn how to speak Italian, yes.
Yeah, you were.
But it was a dialect.
Chicago dialect?
Yes. Yeah.
And what was the neighborhood like? Were the houses pretty much the same? Or?
Yes, the houses were all private residence, except on the corner we had a 3-story apartment building. And then there was a duplex type of thing across the street.
Did you have a neighborhood grocery store?
No, we had to go 2 blocks away for groceries.
Was it a little local store, or was it a...
Well, we had a local store, and then about 4 blocks away we had the A&P. And we had a large butcher shop next to the A&P. And that was about it.
Were the streets paved and sidewalks?
Oh yeah, we had paved streets
Or
and
how was it?
sidewalks.
Mm.
And we had mostly bushes separating the houses. There were no fences or anything.
And when you went to school, where was the school?
The school, I went to a Catholic school, a grammar school, which was about 7-8 blocks away. I had to walk to, unless the weather was really bad, and then I could ask my father to drive me, which...
Well, we've gone 6.5
Oh,
months
okay.
here, so I think there's...
The homes were brick. There were two frame dwellings, I remember, yes.
And how many square feet would the average home have been around there?
Oh, roughly, I would say about 1,800 square feet for a 2-story resident.
Would that include a basement?
And a basement, yes.
So what was the neighborhood like? A lot of trees? Were the streets paved?
All the streets were paved, sidewalks we had, and there were a few trees, mostly bushes in front, lawns. And of course, the strange thing there, we never had any fences. It was all, open, just the lawns.
And how many were in your family, the brothers and sisters?
I had 1 brother, and we lived with my mother's sister and their mother. So we had about 7 in the house.
And how many bedrooms?
We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms.
And that was a big house.
Yeah, it was pretty good size.
So,
the bedrooms were very big, but it was
yeah,
a
but you
good
didn't
size.
have to share then, or
No. Well, I did share with my younger brother.
how much younger was he?
He was 6 years younger.
6 years. So
Yes,
pretty good spread.
Yeah.
Now, when you were growing up, can you remember much about how things were during the Depression?
Well, my father always worked. That was one thing. We always had some money. We always had a car.
What kind? Can you remember?
Well, we had a Page before it was Graham Page. We had a Ajax before it was Nash. We had a Essex, and we had a Packard, and a Packard, and then a Nash. So,
Most of those names people today would never recognize.
probably not, but
A Page, I mean, how many people know what a Page is?
well, the Page, the steering wheel on the Page was 1 inch thick.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh yeah, it was solid wood, walnut. You know, it was a big car.
Yeah.
We had shades in the back, little vases to put our flowers in.
Wow.
So I'm assuming if you were Irish, you grew up Catholic?
Yes.
Can you remember, is that where you went to school? Did you go to Catholic school?
Yes, I went to Precious Blood,
And
which was, yeah.
and then the whole family, did they all go through the same Catholic schools? And then,
Yes, well, no, we lived on, when we first, when I was born at the American Hospital in Rogers Park. Then after that, we moved down to the near west side, where my grandfather had built these buildings. And he had built the house we lived in.
as a contractor?
As contractor, yes.
Well, that was a pretty good deal, wasn't it?
Yes, pretty good, yeah. Then he passed away. And
Can you remember kind of odd jobs and things you had during those days? What did you do to
Oh,
people supported the family a little during the Depression?
well, we delivered groceries for the A&P. which was the market then. And once in a while, I'd deliver meat for the meat market. You know, just little things. I never did have a paper job or anything like that.
How about hobbies and things? How did you grow up? What were your interests as you grew up as a kid?
Well, I had a bicycle, that was one thing. I loved to ride the bicycle, go down to the waterfront.
To the lake?
Yeah, the lake was very nice. Went to the zoo, Lincoln Park Zoo, quite a bit with the bike. Other than that, in the wintertime was primarily reading, and we didn't have any computers or anything, and we had a radio. Listened to the radio, like Lights Out.
Favorite radio program?
Oh, Lights Out and The Lone Ranger, and what was the other one? Captain, or Tailspin Tommy. Quite a few of them. Oh.
Did you get your little Orphan Annie badge?
Oh yes, that I had, and I had my Orphan Annie ring and my Dick Tracy decoder. I remember that, yeah.
How about your brother now? Did you two, were there sports in the Catholic schools that you participated in?
No, we had no playground as such. We just had a concrete recess area. It was too small for anything like that.
And did you then go all the way through high school and graduate?
Yes, we went to Crane Tech High School. There again, we had I joined the ROTC there, plus the accordion club, and kept me active. But I quit high school in 1943 when I enlisted in the Navy.
So you were still in high school when World War II broke out?
Yes.
And can you remember where you were and what you thought?
Oh yes, I remember
7th?
December 7th, Sunday. Of course, we had gone to church, came back from church, read the comics, listened to the radio a little while, and then we had an early dinner in the afternoon. We had the radio on, it was playing music when the announcement came over. And everybody said, "Where's Pearl Harbor?" You know, nobody ever heard of Pearl Harbor. But then they sort of explained it maybe an hour later, half an hour later.
So how old would you have been then?
16.
16.
No, I was 15, that was right.
Have there been discussions in the family with your European roots about what was going on in Europe?
No, we never discussed that. We strictly talked about the U.S.
And there was, when Hitler went into the Sudan and places like that, it was
No,
not
nothing.
part of the conversation?
No, never.
And then as the war became a reality, what kind of thoughts were going on in your family then about the boys and war, and what did you hear from your parents?
Well, my father wanted me to go to finish high school, then take a couple of years college before I went into service. And I wanted to go in the Navy.
And why would you have picked the Navy?
I always wanted to go in the Navy. I don't know why.
Going out to the lake did it, huh?
Maybe. Or maybe because he was in the Army. I don't know. But when I was 16, a week after my 16th birthday, I went down to enlist. And of course it didn't take, because I had my parents sign it and they wouldn't sign it. So I had to wait another year till I was 17. Then when I was 17, my father went down with me and signed it right there.
Well, now at this point the war was pretty well into us losing all over the South Pacific.
Yes, we were just beginning our little comeback, yes.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you, going back to your father, was you said he was a mechanic in France in World War II? Is that
Yes, in the Air Force, Army Air Force.
Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
And
He went with a pilot in one of the planes, a Jenny, I guess it was a two-seater. And when they took off, the plane crashed into a tree. So he was discharged practically right after that.
so he was injured
Yes.
enough that he could not.
Well, they sent him back. I don't know what they were doing then, but I have his discharge at home, and it showed he was discharged right after that. So.
Do you have some pictures when we do your, that you could bring in, we could add to this?
No, I really don't. No. I guess they were sort of less lost, moving different places,
Yeah. So after you enlisted, I'm sure it was downtown Chicago, probably.
Yes, on Plymouth Court.
And when you walked in and you said you were 17 and your dad was with you, how did they greet you?
The chief greeted me with open arms. He said, well, glad to see him. Signed up the papers. He said, come back, I believe it was a Monday. He said, come back on Thursday for your physical. So I went back on Thursday. I took the streetcar down there, took my physical. He said, I'll let you know in a day or two your phone number and everything. I still remember my phone number. And
What was it?
Sealy 6497.
Sealy.
Sealy.
By where you were in the town, does that Sealy have some?
Yes, it was an area, you
It
know.
was called Sealy?
Sealy, you know. Before we had 320 and all this, you know.
Right.
We had names. And he called and said to report on the following Monday and to bring just the clothes you wear, a toothbrush and shaving gear. I didn't shave then. I bought a razor and some shaving cream and went down. And we went down to Plymouth Court where we enlisted. There were about 15 people, 15 fellas there. And from there we marched over to the Dearborn Street Station, which was about 4 blocks away. We said, oh boy, we're going to Great Lakes. Oh, good, okay. Got on the train went, it was going and going. We didn't go to Great Lakes. Where did we go? Farragut, Idaho. So anyway, the train is something else again. In those days, it was a green parlor car, and it had green plush seats, and in the middle was a potbelly stove.
Of the car.
Yeah. So I said to the fellow next to me, I said, gee, I wonder who takes care of that. We found out right away. The chief came in and said, each of you take a turn putting the coal in the wood in the furnace. That was the stove.
So what time of year was this again?
This was September, the end of September.
In September. And do you remember what it cost to ride the streetcar in those days?
It was 15 cents.
15. Could you ride all over town? With
All over, transfers, yeah.
Going back just a little bit again then, during the Depression, I gained from you that there was no food problems, no...
No, we never had
You
that.
didn't?
Some of our neighbors did. And it was I don't know what it was, but if a fella came up to your door or a woman knocked on the door and said they were hungry, we'd make them a sandwich. And we thought nothing of it, you know, if they were black, white, or whatever they were.
Yeah, I remember coming to my grandmother's back door.
Yeah.
And she'd always feed them.
That's right. I mean, it was just something, you know, you
Yeah.
did.
Everyone,
That's right.
you know. Well, so you go to Idaho now. Have you been out of Chicago before? I mean, what's your...
Oh, yeah, we traveled a little while by car. My father liked to take trips by car, but I've never been that far northwest in that cold.
You were away from home first time
Yeah, really.
in Idaho.
In Idaho. Actually, we landed, the train stopped at Sandpoint, Idaho. We got on a bus, and the bus took us to Farragut. Yes, that's where we didn't stop anywhere, just straight through. Went into the boot camp, got there, the fella says, okay, it's time to get your uniforms. We went into the reception area, which was ship's company at that time. And first thing you had to do was take all your clothes off, put them in a bag, put your address on them, they ship them home for you. So we did that. Standing there freezing, no clothes on. Went in a line, all lined up together, lined through. Here's your shoes, here's your socks, here's your pants, here's your underwear, here's your blouse, here's your hat. And on top of all these clothes you're holding, they put a stencil. They said, okay, now check your stencil and make sure your name's right. We did that, okay. Then we went in the next room. Fellow was standing there, seaman. He had a brush, black brush for the white clothes, white brush for the blue clothes. And he put your name on everything except your shoes. Then we got dressed. Then we went out on the grinder, which is the parade field. we waited there until we were assigned our barracks. We went to the barracks. Here again we had a potbelly stove. We stayed there about a week. Then we were transferred to the newer barracks. The newer barracks had a new invention, the iron fireman. The iron fireman was a coal feeder to feed the furnace in the barracks.
An auger?
And guess who did it? We all took turns feeding the iron fireman.
Now, was that a hopper with an auger?
Yes.
And
You had to fill the hopper with the coal, then it would carry it through into the furnace.
that's what we had in our basement.
Yeah.
I took the clinkers out.
Yeah.
Remember the clinkers?
Well, we had a coal burning furnace in the house, and I have to take the ashes out all the time. And you had to shake the grates so the stuff would fall through, fill the cans.
Yeah, we had that initially, and then my grandmother put in the iron
Oh, the iron fireman,
the
yeah.
iron fireman. And the coal had oil on it, so the house didn't have dust all over
Yes.
it
Hmm.
after.
It's pretty clever.
Yeah, and so basic training lasted how long?
Basic training lasted 8 weeks.
And were you, after you finished basic training, given any kind of test to kind of determine where you were going to go? Or did they already?
No, they more or less decided where you were going to go.
You already.
I had a little problem in basic training. I couldn't learn to swim. But they let me through anyway. No, we got out of basic training. We were given our orders and a 30-day leave. My order, well, you sign up for what you'd like, but they already had your name where you were going. And I had sea duty, which I wanted, really. So I got a 30-day leave to go back to Chicago. From Chicago, my order said to report to Bremerton, Washington.
So it was 2 more train rides.
2 more train rides, yes.
Now, had many of your buddies gone into the service also, or were you kind of leading?
No, I was alone from my area.
You were all by yourself.
Well, I met a couple of fellows from Michigan that were down there, and we had a pretty good time.
But in your high school and guys you were with,
No,
they hadn't gone yet.
A couple of fellows had gone earlier that I was in grammar school with. They were a little older than I was, and one went in the Marines. He was at Guadalcanal, and his brother went in the Marines, and he was at Guadalcanal. It's only about a year apart between them.
Do you think having had a father who served in France in World War I got you interested in the service, or was it something else?
But I think it was primarily the ROTC in high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting.
You were a part of that?
Yes, I was in the Drum and Bugle Corps.
But you said you were an accordion player?
Yeah, I joined the accordion club too. Played the bugle and played the accordion.
Did you see the new bugle now that?
Yeah, that's really something. I can't believe that.
You just hold it up to your lips and punch a button and it plays taps?
Can't believe that. But it doesn't have the inflection that a real player has.
I don't think so.
No.
I had to hear it first.
Well, it's the same as the tape that you hear. Sometimes when you have taps at a funeral, they play a tape. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Have you heard it? Have you heard them?
Well, I've heard the tape because we participate in Riverside Cemetery for a lot of burials.
You do?
Yes, I belong to the American Legion VFW, and our post 495 in Cathedral City has an honor guard. We go to the cemetery here, Cathedral City, and we have Memorial Day and Veterans Day that we have a firing squad. But the ones out in Riverside, we have a problem. We don't have too many people, and there are a lot of veterans that have no families. So we do that as a service.
It's really very admirable. I'll ask you some questions later on that.
Yeah.
That's different from your history.
Right.
So now you're back off of leave, and you're in.
Yes, I'm in Bremerton, Washington. And in Bremerton, Washington, well, actually we got off in Seattle, the train. Then we had to take the Blackball Ferry across the Sound to Bremerton. We got to the base in Bremerton. To get on the base, you had to show them your orders. You got to tell you what barracks to go to. I was sent to the receiving unit, And let's see, at the receiving unit, I talked to the chief, and it was about 3:30 in the afternoon. He says, well, don't bother today. He says, you go to barracks such and such, get something to eat, and see you in the morning about 7:30. Well, next morning, I went back to where he was, and he said, you've been assigned to USS West Virginia, PB-48. I said, okay, but you have no duties right now.
Now explain PB-48. What that
BB, it's his battleship designation.
P-
And the number BB.
PB,
No, BB.
P,
BB?
or just BB?
Bravo,
BB.
Bravo.
BB. Bravo, Bravo.
Bravo, Bravo, 48. That was the number of the ship.
Now, and it had a state name?
USS West Virginia.
Was that what all battleships had, were state names?
At that time, they were all state names, yes.
And how new was the West Virginia?
It was built in 1928. Was sunk at Pearl Harbor. They were brought it up from the bottom in Pearl Harbor, towed it all the way to Bremerton for refitting. That's why I had no duties aboard it, because it wasn't ready.
So, how, when it was sunk at Pearl Harbor, was it dive bombers or torpedoes?
It was torpedoes. They reported that it was hit by 9 torpedoes. It was just forward of the Arizona and on outboard of the Tennessee. And when they brought the ship up, they discovered it was actually 11 torpedoes that hit it. So
And it was able to be salvaged?
well, what they did, they brought it up and they put these concrete, what we call them is blisters on the side of the ship, on each side where the damage was. Then they floated it, took all the water out of it, then towed it back to Bremerton, Washington for the dry dock.
Amazing.
It is, yeah, what they did.
So basically, everything above deck was still pretty good, the guns and...
Oh, no, well, the guns were all right. They had to be realigned,
Yeah.
but they took all the superstructure off and everything. Now, the same superstructure we got, the West Virginia, was the same superstructure they put on the Tennessee and the California. So the 3 ships looked alike, but the California and Tennessee had 14-inch guns, and we had 16-inch guns, because we were the Maryland class, which was the Maryland, Colorado, West Virginia.
Just those 3
Yes,
had 16 inch.
yes.
Everything had 14 inch.
Most of them, yes, at that time, before the South Dakota and the North Carolina.
Now, when the ships there are being re-outfitted and put back into service, what do you do during that period of time?
I was assigned the ship's company. I figured this is a snap. Where'd they put me? In the receiving line with my paintbrush. That's where I ended up. And, once in a while, I would say about every 3rd week you had mess duty. It was just one of those things. Mess duty, and that was about it. Till,
You're forming a ship's company, though.
Yes.
Take the ship back into service
right.
and go to war in it.
And then I got a promotion later. I was promoted to fire inspector. Oh, this was a big deal, I thought. It was. I carried a fire extinguisher behind all the lady welders while they welded.
And your title was fire inspector.
Fire inspector,
I
right.
promoted you for that.
Right.
Now, you getting a little liberty there in Bremerton?
Yes, well, we went to Seattle a couple of times in Black Ball Ferry. Seattle was a very interesting city. It was state-controlled liquor, so if you went to a nightclub, which I wasn't supposed to go anyway, but they let me in. And Sally Rand was performing there.
Really?
But what they did was serve you setups. You had to bring your own liquor, or you belonged to the club.
And
But I didn't drink much then except some beer.
had you had any female interest at that time?
No, not really.
Is there a USO where you could go?
No, not in Seattle, no. No, we never went to USO there. No.
And to get from the base into town and back, how would you do that?
You had to take the Black Ball Ferry. You took the bus to the ferry, and then the ferry let you off at Pier 3, I think it was, right at the bottom of Front Street. And Front Street were all the cocktail lounges and restaurants. And it was good to go to the restaurant. We get shrimp and things that we didn't get on the base, you know.
So how long then were you there in Bremerton before you started doing sea trials?
We were there till June of 1944.
Wow, you were there a long time.
Then June of 44, yeah, January through June. And June we started our sea trials. We went up to the Straits of San Juan, to Fuca, up through there, out to the ocean, and did most of our sea trials there. We only took sea trials for 2 weeks. Then we came back to Bremerton, had the ship all ready, loaded, ammunition loaded. Then we went from Bremerton straight down to Long Beach. And that was a sea trial all the way down there. Target practice, gunnery practice, and ship practice.
And what was your job? What were you doing now?
When I first went on, I was assigned to the Division 4, which was turret number 4. I was assigned to the magazine.
Was that forward or aft?
That's aft. It's on the quarterdeck.
1 and 2 is forward then?
1, 2, and then 3 is above 4, and then 4. There's 4 turrets. And in the magazine, my duty was to unload the powder from the cans, put the powder on a conveyor belt, which went through a scuttle, which went to another conveyor belt that raised it up to the gun platform.
So how many levels below deck were you?
About 5.
You were really down in the bottom?
Way down, yes, way down.
Now when you say put the powder, were these in bags?
No, they're in tan silk bags. The powder is contained in tan silk bags. And I'd say it's, about 12 inches long, and probably circumference was probably about 15 inches, pretty close to 16 inch.
Mm-hmm.
So they fit around the shell. And the powder came in cans, and the cans were packed with ether to prevent any spark or anything, which I never understood because I always thought ether was very flammable. And they said, oh yes it is. You had to open the cans with lead wrenches so there'd be no spark. So as you opened the can and took the powder out, the ether would come out too, you know, and get a little sleepy now and then.
I was going to say, they must have had a hell of a build system for air.
Well, they did, unless you were in battle. Then they cut off the air conditioning, because if you had an explosion, it would go right through all the vents. So they cut that off. But you would get relieved about every 25 minutes. Another crew would come in, you'd go out for a while, and then you go back in.
You go above deck?
No, just out of the magazine portion of it. Mm-hmm.
And the number of people that would have been down there doing this?
3.
3 people doing it?
3 people, yes.
For all 3 guns? How many guns were?
We only had 2.
Two in that turret.
2 in that turret.
So 3 people provided the powder that went
Yes.
for
Mm-hmm.
2 guns.
Right.
And would they use different amounts of powder for different shots?
Yeah, depending. They would signal down what they wanted. Like most of our Tiger practice was 4 powder bags,
Mm-hmm.
but on the when we were in battle, it was 5 powder bags. Even when on bombardment of islands, it was 5.
And after your shakedown, then?
Okay, we went to Long Beach, and from Long Beach, well, actually it was San Pedro was our port of call. From Long Beach we went to Hawaii. From Hawaii we went out to Ulithi.
Were you traveling individually, or were you part of a group of ships?
When we went to Hawaii, we had the Hancock, which was a carrier, and 1 destroyer to Hawaii. Then from Hawaii, we went with 2 destroyers and a light cruiser to Ulithi. And then from Ulithi, the staging area for all the ships, I've never seen so many ships in my life as was in Ulithi. And the Hancock was there already. And we joined the 7th Fleet. The 7th Fleet was made up of mostly all the old battleships, the Tennessee, California, West Virginia, the Utah, the Mississippi, and New Mexico, were most of the 7th Fleet.
You know, being a lower rated enlisted man, how close did you get to the competition between the brown shoe Navy and the black shoe Navy? Did you get into much of that at all?
No, not really. You didn't have time for it. You know, it was too busy.
Well, had the attitude, by that time the carrier was beginning to take the place of the battleship as the, you know, El Primo in the fleet.
Well, they were, but they weren't. Now, the carrier was primarily a, what do you want to call it? A first stage bombing of the islands, you know, come in and ward off the attacking planes if they could. Whereas the ships would go in and they just sit there and bomb the island, wipe out the towns, and wipe out the troops if you could. The planes did a lot of damage, I grant you, but it was the heavy shells that really wiped out the stuff.
How much would a shell from a 16-inch gun weigh?
Oh, I forgot now. But the shells were about 6 feet tall, and I forgot what they weighed. Oh, I may have it here, but
Well, you have to look it up.
yeah, I don't recall now what they actually weighed. But it was quite an explosion when they landed.
One of the things I was always curious about is that when you fire those guns, if they're, you know, you're traversing 90 degrees to the beach, can you fire all the guns on one side of the ship at the same time? Would that do anything to the
Oh yeah, broadside. Well, that's why you have to set your trajectory to the right position, because when you fire that, say you fire up like this, then the ship's going to go like that. But normally, the shells have already left before the ship goes.
So you could, is it possible to do a broadside with all the guns
Yes.
at one time? You can't
Yeah.
do that.
The only thing you can't do is fire over the bow of the ship,
And why is that?
because you may break its spine.
Going over the bow,
You always have to be a little to the side,
one or the other.
or a complete broadside, you know.
They must have learned that the hard way.
Well, I think so. I think they did, yeah. Now, we also carried, as you know, 2 OS-2Us.
I was going to ask you about those.
Yeah, we carried those, and when we go into bombard an island, we'd probably get, maybe 1,000 yards offshore. Then we'd launch the OS-2Us. Then we'd start proceeding. They'd go up and go over the island, point out the targets. And then they work like the old Battleship game.
What's that?
You know, you put X5, you fire at X5. That's on the grid.
They did it.
Yeah.
So did they have an observer then in the back of the OS-2U?
Yes, photographer and as an observer, right.
Uh-huh. Can you remember how they recovered the OS?
Oh yeah, we used sea sleds.
How'd they do that?
Well, it was a large piece of aluminum or metal, and on the metal was a net, a rope net. And what we would do is put it up on the crane, drop it over the side, control it by lines from the ship, set it out, maybe 50, 60 feet. It would be by itself. Plane would come down. As it was starting to land, the ship would turn into the wind so that it would make a smooth surface on the water. The plane would land on the smooth surface, then taxi up to the sea sled. Had a hook on the bottom of the pontoon, which would hook onto the net. Then we'd pull it in with the lines. The hawsers would bring it in. Then we get it close to the ship. He'd cut the propeller. Then we drop the crane down and hook. There was a hook on top of the canopy, and just pick it up, bring it back to the catapult.
I can remember when my first squadron, we were going to board the ship. I think it was a Saipan. I had to check the logbooks to see who had carrier experience, and we had a major in the squadron that had 26 catapults and no carrier landings.
Oh.
And I couldn't understand, I'm a second lieutenant in the squadron, and someone explained to me he was in OS2Us on a
Oh, oh.
because I couldn't believe a guy couldn't get aboard ship in 26 tries.
Well, by the time we got to Iwo Jima, after the Philippine operation,
Well, now, what was your first combat with the ship
Mindoro, near the Philippines.
near the Philippines?
Yes, and that was the bombardment of the island.
Was it the Battle of Leyte Gulf that you were?
No, just before that.
Just before that.
Just before that. And we had no opposition there at all. Then we went up to Lingayen Gulf, which is actually Leyte Gulf, same thing. And there we started to bombard the island, then we had quite a few air attacks.
Did you not get involved at all, or was it already past with the two big battles they had when the Japanese fleet came up from the south and from the northwest and attacked the fleet there at Leyte? Were you ahead or behind?
Oh, Zaragoza Straits?
Yeah, were you
Oh,
ahead?
this was right after the Leyte.
Uh-huh.
We were going up through Zaragoza Straits at that time, and just four of us, the Amity Bay got sunk by a kamikaze. Then we went up to Zaragoza Straits. That was interesting because we went to Chow at 6 o'clock in the evening, which is a little later than we usually do. And they told us we had to report to our stations that battle stations would be called at 9 o'clock. So we went, tried to get a nap, whatever we could. Then battle stations were 9 o'clock, we went to battle stations. Then we went into Zaragoza Straits, and at that time the Japanese fleet was coming up. And at 3 a.m. in the morning they were finally sighted. We started firing our guns.
That's the Jap fleet.
And the West Virginia was the lead ship in crossing the T, which was credited with sinking the first battleship at the Japanese. And this was the famous crossing of the T that the Navy yearns for, and it was the last battleship of battleship to battleship.
The West Virginia.
Yeah.
Now, when you're down 5 decks below, are you hearing any of the news as to what's going on?
No, you don't. All you get is important information. I mean, how many powder,
Here?
keep the powder coming.
Did you have special fire protection clothing?
No, not at that time. We didn't even have ear protection at that time.
No kidding.
No.
Did it bother your ears? Is it something that...
Well, I don't know. I wear hearing aids now, and I'm not sure if I could relate it to that or not. But primarily, see, when we had air attacks, I was on the 20 millimeters
Oh, okay.
on the aft quarterdeck, and at times I would be the gunner, and at times I'd be the loader. It just depends how you got there. That was all. It didn't matter.
Did you have Marines on that ship too?
Yes, the Marines took care of the 40 millimeters,
And you were on the 20s.
20 millimeters.
I see.
Then we had the 5-inch guns too.
Now, can you remember much about the Japanese kamikazes? And
Oh yes, that we remember quite a bit about.
what are some of your memories on
You
that?
know, one of the strangest things though is they would fire over our ship, other ships. They fire, the projectiles would explode and everything, but the next morning we'd never find any flak on the deck. It seems very strange,
Yeah.
but I don't know what happened. Well, our first kamikaze attack was in Leyte. Yes, that was the first one. We didn't like that at all.
What you were on? Were you below deck or on a gun?
Oh no, 20 millimeters were
You're on
topside, yeah. And you see these planes come through. You know, the sky would look like like it's fly specked. You couldn't see how a plane could get through there, but they came right straight through, no problem.
Do you remember what your gunnery, how to lead, what they were told you, how far to put them out?
Oh, that was something else again. We started out with the 20 millimeters with these Pontiac electronic gun sights. Okay, they never worked at all. I mean, they were out of focus. Sometimes they just go blank. So we had them take them all off, and we put on the old circle. Every fifth shell was a tracer. So you could guide more by the tracer than you can by anything else. So you know exactly where you're following the plane.
Well, it must have been different lead with where the plane was coming straight.
Oh, yes.
Or coming by the side. Or,
Yeah, the kamikazes had what I thought was a little strange, is they would come in low, then all of a sudden they go high. Then they get over a ship and come right down. Or like the carriers, they would get, we had a lot of the baby carriers with us. And what they do is start low, go up high, then come down low again and try and go right down on the flight deck. That's where they hit the carrier. It was quite interesting the way they came in. We were very lucky. We went through the Philippines, Aishima, Iwo Jima, and our first hit was in Kamikaze, in Okinawa by a kamikaze.
where did it hit the ship?
Right in one of the most important places of all. It hit the galley and the gidunk stand. That's where it went. And it dropped a 250-pound bomb down to the third deck, but it didn't explode.
Oh, no
It
kidding.
was pretty lucky there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lucky ship.
I guess. And when you were going through all this, did you lose any of the ship's company? Any of the
Well, we lost 2 men in Iwo Jima by ground fire.
from off ashore?
Yeah. And the reason we did, we were too close to the shore. And these 2 were on a 20-millimeter mount, just standing there waiting. And one was injured and the other was killed, but he had to be transferred, one that was injured. And the last one was the kamikaze. We lost 9. And that was primarily from the 40 millimeter and the 20 millimeters just below the 40 millimeter. The flames and the gasoline. But that was all we really lost. It wasn't bad.
Were you involved at all in the typhoon that hit the fleet?
Yes, we were in the China Sea at that time when the typhoon hit. Yeah, it was quite interesting. The people I felt sorry for were the destroyers and the DEs, destroyer escorts. I mean, these ships would go practically up in the air and go down, and you wouldn't see them for a while. Then they come back up again. And a couple didn't come back up again. That's what happened in that typhoon. It was really something.
Now, was that Halsey's task force that got into that?
Well, Halsey got in part of it, and the 7th Fleet got in part of it. We were all headed towards Okinawa at the time. The 3rd Fleet, which was Halsey's, was always off. It never got involved really with the island bombardments because they used the planes from the carrier. So the Missouri and the Wisconsin and the Indiana, they were too fancy for all this stuff, you know. They didn't want to damage them, I don't think.
Put the good old boys in.
Yeah, but we went up the shore and bombarded.
So after you left the Philippine area, where did you go next?
From the Philippine area, after Surigao Straits, we went to Aishima. First we went back to Leyte, got some ammunition which we needed. Then we went to Aishima. From Aishima we went to Iwo Jima.
Is exactly where is it?
Between the Philippines and Iwo Jima.
Okay.
It's a small island. It wasn't worth much. We just bombarded a little while. Then we went up to Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was a lot of air attacks.
And most of the time then, if you were bombarding, were you down in
Yes,
the deck?
when we're bombarding, yes, down there.
And then you had 2 stations then, and you weren't bombarding, then you went to the 20.
Right, that was for the air attack. And then we also had to stand watch with the glasses to see what's going on, submarines and all kinds of things. But in Iwo Jima, I got transferred. I got transferred from the Division 4 to the VG Division, which was gunnery ordnance. And we took care of the catapult, we took care of the OS-2Us, and we took care of the 5-inch shells that we put in the catapult to fire it. So, and the small arms armory. So I was mostly on deck then after that.
So did you have a locker or something then you guys worked out of, you know?
Well, we had a regular armory.
The regular armory?
Oh yeah, it was a small armory, but
So you could take the guns out of the OS2U and service
yes.
them, put them back in?
Mm-hmm.
All that.
Yeah, we had 2 aviation machinists mates on board for the planes. And when we were in Iwo Jima, we got a letter from a communique from Halsey. He said we lost more planes than some of his carriers did, which we did. We lost 8 of them.
From ground fire?
Well, both. Sometimes they didn't shut the propeller off in time. You dropped the hook down. Just, I mean, it wasn't funny, but it seems like it is now.
Did you get to know any of the pilots that you were there?
Yeah, I knew one of them. He was pretty good.
Do you
Yeah.
remember his name?
He wasn't there too many. Johnson. Yeah. He was a JG. Yeah, Lieutenant JG. But he was only there for about a month or so, and then he got transferred. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Some of them, of course, got ground fire and they didn't come back. They parachute out. You never knew what happened to them.
Yeah.
And of course, those that we did, I mean, we'd rescue them by a destroyer would pick them up. We lost a couple of them. You have to learn, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, during war, you know, you just move on.
I think you got an OS2U downstairs.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I think you did. Last time I was here, I saw it.
Now, so you've moved all the way up from Philippines to Iwo Jima.
Yes, we were at Iwo Jima.
Now, they got pretty serious about kamikaze.
Iwo Jima was bad, but the worst was Okinawa.
Okinawa.
If you understand the operations of a fleet, the fleet is the big ships in the middle, smaller ships outside, then another ring further out, what they call picket ships. And these were primarily DEs, destroyer escort, weren't as big as a destroyer. And when the kamikazes would come in, these are the ships they'd pick on. So the next row line, or whatever you call, of kamikazes come in, they can go for the big capital ships. So off of Okinawa was an island called Karamarito. And Karamarito was the place where all the damaged DEs were. Some of them had no superstructures. Some just half a ship was there. It was terrible.
It was a boneyard then for DEs.
Yeah, really. It was something to see.
That's amazing. Now, do you remember any of the ships that were lost there at Okinawa?
No, not the names of the destroyers, no.
Pretty much just destroyers?
Yes, and destroyer escorts primarily. Yeah.
And you're primarily then just bombarding Okinawa?
Yes, that's what we were doing at the time, right. That's when we got hit there.
With the kamikaze?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, did you have to retire somewhere for repairs, or did you just...
No, we were offered to go back to Leyte for repairs, but our captain said, no, we don't need it, we could do it ourselves, because after Okinawa we were going to go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
The invasion of Tokyo, or Japan if you want to say that. But at that time when we were in Okinawa, the atomic bomb was dropped. The first one was Nagasaki?
Yeah,
Nagasaki, and then the other one was Hiroshima.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they surrendered. So after they surrendered, we were still in Okinawa, waiting to see what we were going to do. And one night, we were in Okinawa, we heard this big explosion. Then we found out that the Pennsylvania was torpedoed by one of these Baka bombs. A Baka bomb is a torpedo controlled by a person. The person sits on the torpedo and guides it
In the water.
in the water. And it hit the Pennsylvania that night. We had to send over a pump and a couple of little boats to see if we can help in any way.
It was after the war?
Yes, after the surrender.
It surrendered, huh?
After they said they surrendered.
Had you any knowledge of what atomic energy was while you were...
No.
I mean, when they said an atomic bomb, what did that mean to the troops?
Who knew?
Yeah.
You know, we knew it was something good.
It was over. That.
Right. Well, not only good, but I mean, not only it was over, but we wouldn't have to fight anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and Okinawa was the first place I ever saw a jet plane, and we couldn't believe it.
Whose was it?
Hmm?
Whose jet was it?
Ours.
Oh, yours.
Yeah, it was a, what was the first jet we had? I forgot now.
Well, it could have been.
That small one, though.
Yeah.
But you couldn't believe this thing flying through there. There was smoke coming out of the back of it. It's really something to see. Then from Okinawa, we went to Tokyo Bay. We were the only ship that was sunk at Pearl Harbor that was in Tokyo Bay for the surrender.
Oh, that's interesting.
And we were just off the starboard side of the Missouri. And we were sitting there, and everybody was on deck, you know, looking around. And you see this little tugboat coming along. It's about level with the water. And it had a high black stack. And all the emissaries from Japan were there in their form of, with their high silk hats, and it looked like they were riding on the water. The boat was so low, it was really something to see. Yeah. Then we went down to the Japanese Naval Academy. That's where we got leave in Japan.
It was at Yokohama?
No, it was
Yokosuka.
Yokosuka, that's it, yes.
Yeah, that's what Navy still.
Yeah, Yokosuka.
In Yokosuka.
That was a funny place too. You go in the classroom and you look in the cloakroom, and normally you go in the cloakroom, your cloak's up there, but the hooks were down here. You had to go down there and look at the hooks. But they had all these Japanese blue jacket manuals.
Now, did you get to experience a little liberty out in town? And
Well, there was nobody there.
no one there.
No one there. They had all run to the hills.
And
It's
so did you just basically stay on the base, or?
We always went back to the ship. We only had a couple of hours ashore just to see what it was like. That was all. Then we had port and starboard liberty. So each one got so many hours.
Aboard,
Yeah.
you were off the ship.
Yeah.
So did you lighter in one of the ships?
Yes.
And,
Yeah, we could lighter it in, you know.
So at what point then do you get sent back to the States?
We started, let's see, we went, we were the first one of the ships of the Magic Carpet.
What's that?
Magic Carpet was the ones that brought the prisoners of war back from Japan. Some of the troops, American troops that had come up to Japan, the Army,
Mm-hmm.
and we loaded our ship with people, mostly POWs, yeah. And we took them to Hawaii. And then those that were going to the States, we took and brought them to San Diego. And from San Diego, we went back to Hawaii, then back to Japan, picked up some more, brought them back to San Diego again, the second trip, and then in San Diego I was discharged. I mean, sent back to Great Lakes to be discharged. I had no family benefits, you know, but I had enough battle points that I could get out at my young age.
So how old were you then?
I was, what?
How old were you then?
I was 19.
Wow.
Going on 20, yeah.
Now, the condition of the POWs, can you remember much about how?
Yeah, some of them were, we didn't get the real bad ones because they went on the hospital ship. But we got those that were able to walk and get around and things like that. They had some pretty good stories to tell about how bad the Japanese were, but we didn't see that in the papers or anything.
So they had been collected and brought to different bases to put them aboard?
Correct,
You know,
yeah. The Army did most of that. They were pretty good that way.
yeah. Yeah, because I have talked to guys who, on LSTs, that had to take the Koreans that were in the Japanese Army back to Korea.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that, yeah.
Because they had been conscripted into the Japanese Army. And they had to sort them out, you know, and figure out what to do with them.
Yeah.
Well, then was the ship involved in unit citations and things like that?
No, we didn't get a unit citation. We asked for it. We didn't get it. I don't know. Politics.
That's amazing after,
Well, we earned 5 battle stars.
yeah.
Yeah.
And coming back then and going to be discharged, are you have been with these guys a long time now, and these friendships pretty solid, or?
Well, they are and they aren't. You know how to. I was with them 2 years probably aboard the ship. The little liberty we got, which was usually Mogmog, which was a burial island down in Leyte, with our 3.2 beer. That's what we got, and that was about our liberty. We never went to any place where we can get ashore.
Yeah.
Because we were busy fighting. You know.
And what rank were you discharged at?
Seaman first class.
Seaman first.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty good though for 2 years, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It was very interesting. One thing about it, though, it really tells you how to get along with people.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Military is something that.
We're just about end of this tape. We're still got some more to go, not a
Oh.
lot, but I'm going to stop this right now.
Oh, all right.
And when you get back to Chicago, have things changed much after 2 years and the war being an onion?
Yeah, there was quite a change, really. The city was entirely different. It was more active, and everybody was working. And there was a lot of prosperity around. Like on the street, there were more cars, people living there. So.
Can you remember when you walked through the front door and you said, "Mom, I'm home," what it was like?
Yeah, big hug, you know, things like that.
Did your dad ask you a lot about what went on?
Well, he didn't come home till, well, they didn't even know I was coming home then, really. I just went home from Great Lakes. But he didn't get home till about 6 o'clock, something like that. Yeah, was glad to see me, and how I was and everything like that. Of course, I lost a lot of weight. I was very thin. They said if I stood sideways, they couldn't even see me. But
Well, that's unusual. That Navy chow usually porks you up a little.
oh, it was all the exercise. That's what it does it, yeah. But no, I was happy and everything. It was hard getting adjusted.
Uh-huh.
Very difficult getting adjusted.
And when you say hard getting adjusted, explain that a little bit.
Well, it was just strange having people around that you didn't know such, you know, and your showering was different, and bathroom facilities were different. And, just wasn't what you left. Everything had changed.
Was your brother grown up by
Well, he was, what was he, 14? He was going on 15, I think, 14, right around there. Yeah, he'd grown up a little bit.
Did he want to hear your stories?
Not particularly, no. Wasn't too interested in them. And then I wanted to get out and see who was home and who wasn't home, and what was going on. See what the girls in the neighborhood were doing.
Yeah.
That's about it. The hardest thing was trying to buy clothes.
Why is that?
They didn't have them.
No.
Couldn't buy clothes. You couldn't buy a suit. It was hard to get shirts because everything was military wear.
Yeah.
You know. And see, it was something else that was very difficult.
Now, had your parents had the experience gas rationing and food rationing?
Oh yes, that. Well, I even had that before I went in the service. The food
stamps.
rationing and the stamps and the A card for the car.
Did you ever have to worry about gas?
Oh yes. Had to worry about gas. Then my father got a job with the during the war with the Navy Department, and he got a I think it was a C sticker.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go down to Decatur, Illinois quite a bit. Decatur, Illinois, the old Staley syrup plant was making 5-inch shells, 5-inch 38 shells. And he was an inspector for the Navy, and he'd go down there, and every shell that came out of there had his initials on it, EJA. And when I was overseas, I told him that a couple of 5-inch shells I saw had your initials on them.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was pretty good. But we made quite a bit of them, 5-inch down there. Yeah. So he was with the Navy Department, and after a while he left the Navy Department and went with the back to his stock.
Mm-hmm. And your younger brother, what?
He was going to high school.
He was still in high school.
Yes, he was in high school.
And
Yeah, that was about it.
so you're looking at what you're going to do to make a living. Where are your thoughts going now?
Well, first I got my $300 from the state. Governor Green was very good to us veterans. He gave each veteran came back $300 from the state of Illinois. It's very nice. And I had my $300 to live with, and I had about $700 I got when I got discharged, because we couldn't spend it anywhere. So we had quite a bit of pay left. And so I didn't do much of anything for a while, just looked around, see what was going on. Then I got decided I would go to school. So I signed up for the GI Bill and went to John Marshall Law School pre-legal, which was one door next to the Navy recruiting office on Plymouth Court, which was strange, but that's so I took pre-legal, which was a 2-year course like that. I didn't care that much for the law, and I got a job with an insurance company. And I was in insurance ever since then, until I retired.
So when do your female interests spur you a little bit?
Well, let's see. I got married in 1948 to a girl in the neighborhood, lived 4 doors away from me.
4 doors.
4 doors away. Yeah, we got married.
So his parents approved it.
Yeah, they had no objection to that.
Was she Catholic and Irish?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
Catholic. Yeah.
So that everyone approved of that.
Everybody approved. Yeah. So.
What was
We-
her name?
Hmm?
What was her name?
Lorette. L-A-U-R-E-T-T-E.
And was their family similar?
No, not really. Her father was Italian, but her mother was Irish and English. So it worked out pretty well. We were still married, so I guess it worked out. I don't know.
How many children then?
No, we don't have any children.
No children?
No children.
That's still. That's probably why you're still married.
Oh, that could be. That could be. I never thought of that.
So you had a complete career in insurance.
Yes, since...
Were you a salesman or were you...
No, I was primarily in underwriting. Then from underwriting, I went to executive.
And for the underwriting, what exactly do you mean by that?
Oh, an underwriter would rate up the policies and read the credit reports and all the reports to see if we wanted the risk, and take it from there.
Was it on individuals or companies?
No, it was we did primarily in buses, trucks, and
People who owned a truck, one truck, or a
no, it'd have to be more than one. It'd have to be a fleet, at least 5.
fleet? Yeah.
5, and the buses would be 1 or a fleet of buses, and we also did automobile dealers.
So did you do much for the city of Chicago or any of that?
No, not too much. I left Chicago in 1951, and I went to a company similar to what we were doing in Los Angeles. I didn't like the winters. I wasn't crazy about the winters after being in the Pacific so long.
Yeah.
So we moved out to California. I had a few connections there, got this job.
Was it a move up for you then?
Yes, a slight move,
Okay.
Yeah, because when I was there a year and a half, they sent me back to Chicago, the home office, which was very funny, but I stayed there 7 years and then moved back to California again.
With your same company?
Yes.
So you had to do your penance back in Chicago?
Right, no matter what. But it worked out pretty well. Then I was transferred to San Francisco, then the beautiful city of Stockton. which was very nice. Then I went to Honolulu,
That's not bad.
lived there for almost 3 years. And then business got pretty bad in Honolulu, so we closed the office out there and came back to California.
Now, this put you in insurance for how long?
42, 43 years,
And
something like that.
did you have a retirement other than your residuals, or with your insurance? Were you a salaried person? Or?
Yes, salaried. We had a 401k
Mhm.
plus a little bonus program every year that
I see.
put away, and it worked out pretty well. And Social Security and
Yeah,
investments. So.
sure. I was just curious because I wasn't
Yeah.
sure whether you lived on commissions or whether you...
No, it was strictly salary.
Was it salary?
Yeah.
So you've
Plus
been
the
married
hospitalization and
Yeah.
everything.
You've been married how long now?
55 years.
55. And when did you come here to the Valley?
We came here in 1955. We bought my mother-in-law and father-in-law moved out to Palm Desert in 55. And at that time I was working in Los Angeles. And she came out here for her health primarily. And we bought a house out in Palm Desert. And we kept it since 55 to 79. In 79 we were burglarized in Palm Desert. I wasn't here. My wife was here and I was working. And it took the sheriff 2.5 hours to get to the house because it was so busy. We only had about 3 or 4 sheriffs down here for the whole area. So we decided we're going to move to Palm Springs in 79. So we sold that house and bought a house here in Palm Springs. Moved out here. We've had that house until 3 years ago when we sold it and moved into a condo. Much easier, nicer,
Yeah.
less work.
Yeah. No painting, no roofs.
Right.
Yeah.
Very.
So, when you look back on your time there in the Navy, is any one incident or one situation kind of tickle you more than any other? You think back and it kind of reoccurs once in a while in your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things really that bother me is that the OS2Us we lost. I mean, how we lost them wasn't too good. And the air attacks bother me a little bit. They keep reoccurring, you know.
Thinking about it.
It's out of the blue, you know, you hear a sound or a smell or something that brings them back.
Brings those memories back.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Brother-in-law was a grunt on Okinawa, and he said that he was sitting there one night looking out at all those ships, and he said one of them just blew up and sunk in front of him. He said, I couldn't believe the ship could sink that fast.
Oh yeah, they go down quick.
And it was late in the evening, and apparently a kamikaze or something got in.
Or a torpedo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something nailed it
Where was he?
on Okinawa.
Well, it could have been another one of those Baka bombs.
Yeah.
Those people were crazy, really. You know, you talk about these suiciders now, and they were the same way in Japan.
Yeah.
They thought nothing of it. Banzai, and they were gone.
Yeah, that Shinto religion. You know,
That's another one, yeah. It's,
Did
yeah.
you get to know any Japanese at all?
No,
Never had any
never had. We never got ashore to see anybody. We were always sailing here or there.
yeah.
You know, we're lucky we got our supplies. We refueled at sea all the time.
Yeah.
Do you have nightmares, or did you have nightmares about it?
No, not really nightmares. It's just maybe a dream here or there, stuff like that. But no, that's one of the things I object to about the VA medical care. You know, they if you got a medal, you become one group. If you didn't get a medal, you become another group. But they think nothing of the combat person,
Yeah.
which is the same as if you got a Purple Heart, you know.
Well, you know, you just were lucky. That's all. I mean, you were doing the same thing. You just didn't get nailed. That's all.
That's right. No, we're very lucky ship. Very
Yeah,
lucky.
Are you aware of I watched a program about a 12-year-old kid that got aboard one of the cruisers or battleships?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Too Young a Hero. Yeah, I saw that. That was quite interesting, and I could see exactly how it happened.
So where he got it, he faked his parents or a notary on his enlistment papers.
But when he got sent to the brig, I can understand how that happened. Some of those people are so hard-headed, they won't listen to anything.
It's kind of an interesting story. I just thought maybe you had run into it.
Yes, I did. I can't remember the cruiser he was on. They mentioned it.
He was in 2 or 3 combats and
Yes,
he got decorated.
early in the war, right.
And when they threw him in the brig, no one would believe he
Well, he lost his papers.
he was 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah.
And took his mother 6 months to get him out of
No, it was
the
his
brig.
sister.
His sister did
His
it?
sister that did it, yeah.
No one would believe it.
She went to newspapers. Interesting.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to get?
No, I think I've asked him some things,
Okay.
and I relate to his Chicago.
Oh, you do?
Because I'm from Chicago, so I really understand
Yeah.
all about that. I'm from an Irish family.
Good. Yeah. Oh, Chicago's a beautiful city, though.
I grew up in East St. Louis,
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I was just in St. Louis 2 weeks ago for a convention.
Illinois, East St. Louis.
Yeah, I know.
And when the gangsters got too hot for them up in Chicago, they'd come down to East St. Louis.
Well, they used to go to Mount Carmel,
Yeah,
down there close to East St. Louis.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to Mount Carmel quite a bit. The first dead body I ever saw was Dillinger.
Really?
My uncle took me to the
that's
morgue
interesting.
on Wood Street,
How did-
Chicago morgue, Cook County morgue, and he was laid out there. There was a line of people waiting to see.
And you saw him.
Yeah. They had the bullet holes with powder, and everything. They had a sheet over part of them.
But it was
So you could see his face?
Oh, it was all the way down,
Oh,
where he was shot. Yeah.
your
It was
dad took
very-
you there, huh?
No, my uncle.
Your uncle.
My father wouldn't take me. My uncle took me. What was that, 33? 33 or 34?
Yeah. You weren't very old then.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
and you had a curiosity about it, huh?
No, my uncle did.
Oh,
You
He
just
says,
wanted
come
someone to
on, we'll go
with
see.
you.
Yeah, that's what he
it
wanted.
didn't bother you?
No, not really. It's like looking at a mannequin,
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I think it'd be different, if he was bleeding or something like that, but just dead.
Would you have any other stories that stick in your mind that you'd like to throw in this?
No, I don't think so. Some I don't think would be you'd like to hear, but or some interesting things.
So your brother, where is he now?
He passed away.
Okay.
He 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Your other members of your family, your sisters?
Nothing. No more family.
No more family?
None.
You're
Just my wife and I. Her parents passed away.
So your end of your family line ends
Right
when
here.
you die.
Right.
You're the end of that line.
Unless I want to contribute something.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else. I certainly enjoyed this.
Well, thank you. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. Really?
I'm hoping Dave will show up here before you leave, but he's due here any minute.
Oh,
I'm going to turn this off.
okay.
Up a little bit.
Yeah, you're not all the way in. That's good.
Good morning, everyone. Today is September 26th, the year 2003. I'm Harry Ziegler, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in California. Part of our mission is to record and preserve the history of World War II. In conjunction with the Veterans Oral History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participate in our country's military conflicts. Today I'm here along with fellow volunteer Mary Barker and Bob Andrade and Dave Thompson. Today we have the honor and the privilege of interviewing Ronald Aubrey. Ronald was in the Navy in World War II and is a battleship man. So nice to have you here, Ron.
Thank you.
If you would spell your full name and tell us when and where you were born, we can start.
It's Ronald, R-O-N-A-L-D, Aubrey, A-U-B-R-Y, born in Chicago, Illinois, 9/13/1926.
And if you would, could we get into a little bit of the history of your family, where your
Sure.
mother and dad and grandparents might have come from?
Okay. Primarily my mother's side came from Ireland, and on my father's side mostly German and Irish.
And can you go into your grandparents? Do you know much about them?
Not too much about them. When they first came here, they came to Canada, and from Canada they moved down into Chicago.
And can you got any reason why they left Canada to come to America instead of staying?
No, probably just for the opportunity. I can't recall anything else.
And what kind of business were your grandparents into?
My grandfather on my mother's side was contractor, and on my father's side he was an engineer.
And did they then do contracting in Chicago?
Yes, my grandfather with the contractor built some houses in Chicago, houses and mostly private residences, yes.
Did he do any apartments or anything like that?
Yes, he built 2 apartments, I recall, yeah.
And did you ever live in one of the houses that he
Yes, we did. When I was born at the American Hospital in Rogers Park, and after I was born we moved down to the near west side where my grandfather built a house.
And then your dad, what did he?
Well, my father was in the First World War in the Army Air Corps, and he was a mechanic, and before he went in the service he was a mechanic. When he came out of the service he went into the grain business, stocks.
So he was making
Futures,
money, futures and
yes.
things like that. Now, when he was in the Army Air Corps, he was in France,
Yes, he was in France.
and did he fly while he was over?
Well, one of the planes that he fixed, I think it was a Jenny with 2-seater, he went up with the pilot, and as they took off they hit a tree, and that was the end of his flying.
So
He was transferred, actually he was discharged right after that.
I see. And what then going back to your father, he came home from Europe and the war, and then became into the grain business. Is that it?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly if it was then, but he did get married then.
So how big was the house that you?
It was a 5-bedroom with a basement,
And how many were in your family?
about 7.
Who all did that include?
Well, that was my mother and my father, my grandfather on my mother's side, my grandmother, and then my grandfather passed away, and then a few years later my brother was born.
So it was pretty common those days to have grandmothers and grandfathers
Yes,
living in the house
Right.
until they died, wasn't it?
there's quite a few of families on the block did that, yes.
Was your neighborhood pretty much Irish Catholic, or was it a big mix?
Well, it was Irish and Italian and German and Polish, predominantly Italian.
Was there a lot of Italian spoken in the neighborhood?
Yes, there was, quite a bit.
Could you understand any of it?
Oh yeah, I got to learn how to speak Italian, yes.
Yeah, so you were
But it was a dialect.
Chicago dialect?
Yes. Yeah.
And what was the neighborhood like? Were the houses pretty much the same? Or?
Yes, the houses were all private residence, except on the corner we had a 3-story apartment building. And then there was a duplex type of thing across the street.
Did you have a neighborhood grocery store? Or
No, we had to go 2 blocks away for the groceries.
was it a little local store, or was it a...
Well, we had a local store, and then about 4 blocks away we had the A&P. And we had a large butcher shop next to the A&P. And that was about it.
Were the streets paved and sidewalks?
Oh, yeah.
And
We had
lots
paved
of trees,
streets
or
and
was it, how was it?
sidewalks,
And
and we had mostly bushes separating the houses, or no fences or anything.
And when you went to school, where was the school?
The school, I went to a Catholic school, a grammar school, which was about 7-8 blocks away. I had to walk to, unless the weather was really bad, and then I could ask my father to drive me, which...
Well, we've gone 6.5
Oh,
months
okay.
here, so I think there's